Oh, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to this webinar with Adaptavist and Apptio for these presentations about Agile transformations, where you will know all the secrets to do an awesome transitions from the traditional to the Agile planning. I'm going to let you with our two awesome speakers, Jean and Govert, and I will let you the floor to you. Thank you.
Hey, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I am Jean Hinson. I'm the Director of Business Agility at Aligned Agility, part of the Adaptavist group. And I have with me here Govert van Beek. Govert?
Yes, I'm Govert van Beek. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. I'm a solutions consultant and product expert of Target Process, the portfolio management solution of Apptio, an IBM company, as they would say today.
Excellent. Thanks, Govert. So let's get into it. So some of the most common things that that companies, tend to want to do to drive their agile transformation really does fit into one of these four categories, right? So, that's whether it's societal shifts, because everybody now has a handheld computer, like what we call our cell phones, for instance, or there's a burning platform from a tech advancement perspective, or even just the need to have a competitive advantage against others in the marketplace. And then finally, the ability to adapt, excuse me. So, how do we pivot for sometimes any of those other things that are happening in the organization? Something that I came across not too long ago that is driving the decision is a combination of the ability to adapt and societal shifts. So, we as a society create so much more content and data than we ever have in the past. So we want to know, where are you in your agile transformation? So I'm going to launch a quick quiz or poll question, I guess. And if you can answer, that would be fantastic. We have four options, whether you haven't started yet, maybe you have a few teams working in Agile, maybe you're mostly doing Agile, but still have a few teams that are still working in Waterfall, and maybe you're doing PI planning and that's kind of about it. Maybe you're mature and you're doing all of those PI planning and portfolio planning. We'll give everybody another minute here to answer. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. So if anybody else wants to answer, go ahead and quickly get that in there. All right, ending the poll. So it looks like that we're kind of split up amongst the groups. So a couple of you haven't started yet, and the rest are split between the rest of the answers. So good to know. All right. Oops, hold on a second. All right. Excellent. So let's talk about the first step in starting your agile transformation. You need to understand where you are to figure out where you're going to go, right? As you embark on your transition, know what changes you're going to need to make in your organizational structure, because most likely what you look like today from an organizational structure isn't what you're going to need as part of your agile transformation. Where are you at in your software delivery? Have you identified champions for change? one of the things that I've seen as companies have tried to transform is they didn't get champions across the organization to help push forward. And what happened was the detractors ended up derailing the transformation. And then the leadership team really thought that the transformation wasn't working well, which it wasn't, but then also decided that Agile wasn't the thing for the organization, even though, it derailed. So the next step, does anybody have any questions? By the way, please feel free to add questions in your Q&A and we'll answer them as we go along. We've got the lovely Laura and Karen on board here to help us out. So the next step is commitment. And this is where it gets really interesting. I have personally managed a team, and we were using Agile processes in our delivery of software services, where none of the rest of the company was doing it. And that was okay, because we were just one little small part of a managed services organization. And so Agile processes across the board wasn't necessarily needed. However, I have seen where a company that I've worked with did not have executive buy-in and commitment from across the organization, and they were trying to implement an Agile tool set and really struggled for the first year to get other groups to join in and help get onboarded onto this tool. And until they were able to get the executive buy-in and develop the value proposition for this particular tool set and following Agile ways, were they finally successful. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to commitment. And even though a nice grassroots initiative is fantastic, in order to grow and have other groups participate, you really do need to have that executive buy-in. All right, excellent. Let's go to step 3. Step 3 is create a solid foundation. So like anything, if you don't have a solid foundation, you're liable to crumble. And you don't want that to happen during your Agile transformation, right? Everyone needs to work relatively in the same way. I do have a customer that likes to say consistency where it counts. And I love that phrase, because it gives groups the ability to do things in their own way where it makes sense, but also do things the same way everyone else is. So you can roll up information in a way that is apples to apples and not apples to oranges, if you will. Things like that include identifying either an Agile framework or even a pseudo-Agile framework, because let's face it, frameworks like SAFe is kind of sometimes has a little bit of a bad name, because people think that, oh, I must follow it to the letter. But I think the key word is it's a framework. So take what you need that works best for your organization and create that solid foundation so people have a new way of working, or a way of working that works for the organization. And then find the roles and responsibilities that are going to pilot that change. So maybe we're going to pick on Govert. So maybe Govert would be a really good product manager. And so we train Govert on how to do that work. And then he is the champion for the pilot group as a product manager. I think the other thing that we can't say enough is make sure all of the people in those key roles are trained. If you don't have the knowledge and the skills to do the work, people are going to fumble, and nobody likes to feel like they're not doing their job well. All right, so let's move on to the next one, is start small and then scale. So this is really where it's a great idea to to identify a pilot team. And that's just a small group that likes to be on the cutting edge of whatever it is that the organization is doing, right? Those folks can really help transform the organization and really push the ball forward. And sometimes, as you know, as much as we like to say, hey, people, process, and then tools, those are not independent. They work together. And having a tool set that can help you with your transformation, that will support your people and your processes, is a great idea. And Target Process is one of those tools that really meets you where you are and can help you help with your agile transformation. It was easy for someone to say, right? The great thing about the tool set is, a great thing about Target Process is we love our magic mouses, don't we? The great thing about Target Process is like I said, it meets you where you are, and it helps bring all of that information together. So I've got another poll question. So let's do poll question number 2. And this poll question is, what is causing you the most problems with your agile transformation? We'll give folks about another 20 seconds to answer. All right, let's share the results. Excellent. So it looks like the group is evenly split between scaling agile, culture, and change management. That's an interesting mix, and that no one is identifying tooling as a problem. What do you think? Govert, what do you think? Is this a surprise to you?
Well, tooling can really be a great support, right? And I will show that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, a tool only supports a good governance framework, and really knowing where to start and making the first steps. That's always the most important thing to start with, which is kind of a transformation. Yeah, so I really understand the outcome. But what I can show now is how easy it is to use some tooling that also supports you in the next steps when it comes to starting an agile transformation. So yeah.
So speaking of that, so Govert, I will hand it over to you, and if you could let you show everyone how you can use Target Process to start small and scale.
Yeah, I will do. So I will share my screen. That will help, of course. So here I am now in Target Process, and I really started simple. So I have a Scrum dashboard open, like you would also have, for example, in tools like Jira, Azure DevOps, Rally, basically the team level tools. You can also do all of that in Target Process. But what we can do here is that we now have started simple on one team. And you can always filter for all the teams that are working. So imagine if you have multiple teams starting to work Agile. That can be supported. We can also really integrate with these solutions that you can really have all the information. The Target Process can also help you in scaling further. So these are tribes or Agile release trains, as you would call them, or we can even go towards solution trains to really allow you to slice and dice and also see the information need at all different levels. So now we start really simple, one team, managing user stories and bugs, having velocity on that team level, but also being able to have a burn up and burn down charts. It's a very simple one. And also we can track some dependencies. If we, of course, would remove the filter, it is interactive. Then you would also, of course, immediately see the information changing. But this is really a simple start. But the trick comes when more and more of your teams or tribes are going to work agile, and you really want to track dependencies across these different teams, well, or release streams. What we can then do is here we have the program board, and in that program board or the ART planning board, we see basically all the user stories and features that are connected to an iteration yet, or that are part of a specific planning interval, if we talk safe. And you can also see that across multiple teams. But what target process also does is that it shows you the main relations between these items. And this is quite a lot because we support multiple types of dependencies. But what target process does here is that it gives you a direct indication, hey, what are the main planning issues across multiple teams in order to ensure a smooth product delivery. And now, for example, we can see here that this team iteration for the additional dashboard user, this user story is a big blocker. So if I would now assign that to a specific iteration, what we then see is that already these planning issues are resolved. It will end up automatically to the backlog of that specific team. We can also exchange that then with the team level tools where they are working in, and really that way you have the latest overview. Okay, what are the main dependencies that we should remove or get away from here? And of course, you would even have the possibility to always add dependencies in these kind of boards and roadmaps yourself. Do we also, yeah?
Wow, Govert, that would really be valuable in ensuring there's no surprises after you're finished planning whether something's going to get done or not.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And what you also want to know is, okay, how did we perform? How are we performing? Are there maybe teams that need to improve because, for example, they don't really deliver what they have agreed upon? Well, a great one for that is, of course, and planning interval. We can, for example, teams use the predictability indicator as a great way of showing that. And there we can see that, for example, Team Rondeau had some issues in a specific planning interval, and that now some actions have been taken, maybe some capacity has been raised to ensure that their predictability goes up towards the next planning interval. Another way of showing that is working with features. What have we per planning interval delivered, committed, versus what have we delivered? So there are really multiple ways of showing these kind of metrics across Agile release train, across teams. And it is all in the way on top of the team level data, so no manual intervention needed, and really you can start simple and grow from there. Then I go here, back to the presentation. The next step.
Excellent. Thanks, Govert. So our next step is communicate. And, one of it looks like the group here, one of their, biggest issues is the culture and the change management portion of their Agile transformation. That's where communication really comes in. I know many companies that really thought an Agile transformation is let's install a tool and everything will be magic, and that's not true. Tools are not a magic bullet. The people and the processes portion is also important, and that's where communication comes in. And that's where using organizational change management skills and methodologies really, really help out here. So those are things like, developing feedback loops and reporting mechanisms, staying in sync, and having whoever it is that is your champion help relay that message to the rest of the organization and bring those detractors on board. I've worked in companies that were trying to change, and they didn't actually communicate that change to anyone. And then they wondered why people weren't getting on board. So typically one of the biggest things that I hear complaints about is where in organizations that aren't doing a great job of communicating, people are really unhappy because they want to be in the know, and people naturally are helpers and want to do a great job in the organization. And the great thing is that target process really helps organization communicate things like, how are we delivering against our strategic objectives? What is our strategy? If I, for instance, so here's a great screenshot, and Govert is going to talk about this here in a little bit and show how target process can support communication in your agile transformation. If you have your strategy and initiatives and the why visible, people are far more likely to be on board and want to help achieve those results than if they're not. So, Govert, you want to kind of show in target process how it can help with communication and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. So one of the first things what we can do when it comes to communication is that, especially when new requests are coming in, and feedback of a lot of our customers is that hey, we get so much new IDs in, or we get so much new functionality requests in. We want to do some informed decision making on where to invest in. So for that, we have a request entity in target process where we make use of ballpark figures, and we automatically calculate a score and give you an indication which request it is best to invest in and which will bring the most value for your business. And then the next step, of course, is either to transform that request into, let's say, a strategic objective that you really want to achieve, or to transform it into an initiative or into an epic and adding it to the backlog of teams. So this is one way how it supports communicating. Another way is, and this is the exact same figure as you've seen in the screenshot, is about measuring corporate goals. So we have identified 2 corporate goals, one of them being grow new business, the other one run the business. And also we connected some strategic objectives against them. So one of them is increase customer satisfaction. And what you can then do is that you can connect initiatives and epics against this strategic objective, and you can also monitor the progress. So you can also clearly communicate to your stakeholders how far you are, and also when you make use of key results. So we are making use of the OKR framework. So when we have identified some key results, you can also clearly communicate which key results will be achieved per strategic objective. And you can then also see which major initiatives are contributing towards that strategic objective. And also here, on every level, it is possible to monitor the progress and also to roll out the progress to the parent level. Another way of seeing that and grouping it is making use of roadmaps. And so you see the progress, and also so you see them sorted per time period. So here we see, for example, for the grow new business corporate goal, we can see which major initiatives are part of that, and also which when these initiatives are planned to be delivered. We can also adjust the timing here, and the same thing, we can also connect them to major milestones. So if you have some major milestones that you want to track, you can visualize them here. And the final thing, always good to communicate what are the major dependencies, creating new dependencies. So these are a couple of examples on how the target process is being used for communication. Other ways, of course, are standard mail notifications, or a comment section where you can tag your colleagues and they also will be notified. Then let's go to the final step.
So thanks. The final step is continuous improvement and continuous delivery. And this is what's really important. Your agile transformation is not a destination. So sorry if you're a flat earth believer, you're not going to get to the end of the earth before you get to the end of your journey. And because it's a journey, it's really great to use OKRs and KPIs to track where you started and where you're going. And you can use target process, as Govert showed, to track all of your OKRs and understand how you're progressing against those. And the beautiful thing is with the integration with tools like Agile DevOps or Azure DevOps or Jira, you can automatically pull that data in and roll it up so you can understand your progress and leave your teams where they are. Using retrospectives to make those adjustments is really important, and you can do that in target process as well. So Govert, I'll let you take that over and kind of show how continuous CI/CD can be handled in target process.
So so I mainly one of the main things that you discuss is retrospectives. Retrospectives or also things like confidence votes are part of target process. So that really you can, when, for example, at the end of your quarterly planning or of your planning interval, you are connected, you sit together, and basically you will put in a retrospective meeting. And as part of the retrospective meeting in the board, unlike here, you simply add a feedback card. And when you put in such kind of a feedback card, what you can do is you can give a description. Target process always gives you the possibility to drag and drop items to give more information. And we can connect it, for example, to a specific team, a release train, or a specific person to take a look at that. And also we can track the state flow to see, have we discussed it? Have we agreed on it? Yes and no. And also to really ensure that if something happens with the feedback, because gathering feedback might always be easy, but doing something with it might be sometimes more difficult. What we can then do is that we can easily create additional action items. We can assign these to teams or to specific users, and they can then, for example, translate them into corresponding tasks so that real improvements will happen and will be tracked. And of course, like everywhere in target process, this kind of information can then also be added, for example, to team dashboards so that you can also track the progress on your feedback and on your action items. I think that was it from my side, what I wanted to show today.
It looks like you can vote on this and keep track, and so the teams can go back and review.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So there's always a voting mechanism as well. Then during the session, you would see a voting icon here. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So I think we're now at the Q&A section. So feel free to add any questions in the chat or the Q&A button. We'll go here. All right. The first question, is there a way to add an overall summary for retros, just not cards? I think that question is for you.
So there's also a retrospective item. I can maybe look it up at the end. There's also a retrospective record itself. And then in that retrospective, you simply create then the summary. You write in everything you do on that retrospective, and you also then create the corresponding feedback cards and also corresponding action items. So yes, that's absolutely possible to do.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions? Anyone else? Feel free to type them in or... All right, we got another question. Thanks. Does target process support MCS for forecasting? Monte Carlo simulation?
No, it's not. It's not one of the things we support, but we have other forecasting principles and simulation possibilities. There, yeah, and of course, especially with planning and trading things back and forth, we can directly see the effect, for example, on capacity, on financials, but also on effort. So there are other ways how to see that. But this exact Monte Carlo simulation is not supported.
Awesome. Thanks, Gilbert. Excellent. Any other questions? Karen, do we have any other questions that you could see on your end?
No, we don't have any other questions on our end here. It goes without saying that after the webinar, we'll be sending out an email, and if there's any other further questions, they can always fill in a contact form and ask us directly that way as well.
Yes, absolutely. We obviously are happy if you want to chat with you one-on-one rather than in the webinar here. So feel free to reach out to us and we can do that. Oh, we have another question. Awesome, Craig. Where can we see the roadmap for new features, integrations, new visualizations?
So yeah, we have a product roadmap that we can communicate. We will, I think we can share that as well.
Yes. I believe that's on the Apptio website.
I think so. In other words, yeah, we check internally how we can share that with you. Yeah.
And obviously, if you're interested in a full-on demo of Apptio to be able to ask more targeted questions specifically for your organization, please fill out that form and reach out to us, and we can get something scheduled either with myself or Govert. May or may not be with either one of us, or it might be with both of us. But we're happy to have those conversations and dig in a little bit deeper. But feel free to ask here as well. So we have actually more time left in the webinar.
Yeah, because I think it's good to highlight here that this is just a subset of what we do in target process, really to help with these six steps. But there's way more sophisticated functionalities in target process as well.
Right, and the value it brings is really incredible. Because a lot of organizations, as they transform, they're agile, they have a group that are working agile, and then they have a group that are still maybe working waterfall. And the great thing about target process is that because it meets you where you're at, those groups that are working agile in an agile way can continue to do that. You can even onboard your teams that are working waterfall and bring all of that information together, so that your leadership team, who wants to know how you are progressing against strategy, can see all of that rolled up from both groups into a single view. And even if you have, a really big company and maybe some people are using kind of more of a safe framework, maybe others are using less, and you have waterfall, each of those groups can be represented and their workflows customized in target process. So each group is working in their way, and the information is still rolling up to the executive, so they understand how the company's doing. All right. Anybody got anything else? All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Govert and I truly enjoyed having you here, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.